The decision to get an MBA for me was a little maybe slow in coming. I was in a bank training program in Philadelphia with peers who had that on their minds. And as I listened to their stories and why they were doing it, I literally remember one of my roommates saying, "You're smart, you should do that too." And I thought, oh, is that what people do? And I really didn't know much about it, but I did start on a path to check out a few schools, and I started to see the possibilities of what being in that environment and being around that kind of peer group would really mean to my continued evolution and learning, and just kind of so I could figure out more about where I was going to go and what I was going to do. Landing a career at Goldman Sachs for many people, including me at the time, felt like, wow, I've arrived. And there's so many things about the firm and my professional development there that I really cherish. I loved my colleagues. I loved my clients and customers. I really loved the firm. But I did find myself surprised, 8 or 9 years into it, that I just wasn't driven by the content. I get asked a lot about this transition from a career in something like investment banking to the nonprofit sector. And so I've had a chance to really look back and try to understand what were those pivot points. And for me, it wasn't a grand leap. It was a willingness to take certain steps to kind of find my way. I didn't know where I was going to land. I didn't have an opinion. So having benefited so much from my graduate education at Tuck and kind of getting prepared for a career in something like an investment bank, my first idea was I'll just go figure out how to get quote unquote trained for the nonprofit sector. And it ends up, that's not so easy to do. Without an opinion of what I really ultimately thought my career would look like in the nonprofit sector, it was hard to find my way, but I ended up getting a master's degree in a field basically related to social work. After 2 years in that program, I realized while I could be a great field service provider, social worker, I really appreciated that I was interested in solving the problems around the social sector a couple levels higher than a field worker would. So that default for me was, what if I help something that's just getting off the ground? And even though I never would have thought of myself as an entrepreneur, nor did I think I'm only going to do it if I can start it myself and build it from scratch, that was kind of the best way I could figure out how to enter and bring the value that I was interested in bringing to the sector. So my first opportunity, which was not a very long-lived one, was about a startup nonprofit in the Boston area. And that was my learning ground. And then it shifted when I got a call from former Goldman Sachs colleagues about an opportunity to work with Michael Fox as he was starting his nonprofit. And I found myself with some what I think are kind of no-brainer decisions. I had already determined that I had a passion for the nonprofit sector. I'd already determined that my skills were probably best applied in problem solving and trying to figure out how to go from point A to point B. And I had a real passion for the impact of philanthropy capital. And so if Michael Fox, as an example, was looking for someone to help him figure out how to launch and build something of impact in Parkinson's, even though I didn't have a connection to Parkinson's or him, that was intriguing. And I'd say the final piece of it that was really obvious to me is that many nonprofits have good ideas, but a very limited span of impact. And their big challenge is scaling. And the one thing that was obvious to me is, if you're going to work with Michael J. Fox, you have a better than average chance of scaling. I remember when I was a student at Tuck, there was one class I didn't want to get anywhere close to, and that was entrepreneurship. And I have come to appreciate that I had a misconception about what entrepreneurship was. I thought that to be an entrepreneur, you had to be an inventor. And I had confused those things. I wouldn't sign up for that class because I didn't think I had the bright idea that nobody else had ever thought of. And it ends up that there are ways for inventors to become entrepreneurs. But in fact, much of entrepreneurship is about having a vision and having a set of skills that enable you to execute an idea. And for me, I look back today and I think, wow, ironically, I didn't think I had what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And now when I can see what the role I've played with others in building something that is extraordinary, I realized I am in fact an entrepreneur. And we didn't walk into our mission of trying to accelerate drug development in Parkinson's disease knowing what the answer was. We didn't have the idea. It was about starting with understanding why we aren't making more progress and chipping away at the things that are addressable. I mean, one thing that's clear about trying to get to cures for diseases is that biology is hard. And one thing I know is I can't change biology, but there were so many ways in which we could improve the landscape and the enterprise around scientific research and engaging patients in research and doing things smarter and faster. And it ends up that kind of problem solving is at the core of what I think good entrepreneurs are all about.